I'm going to put on my man of God hat tonight and give you some warnings of what's coming. And from what I see, and we're going to get it right straight from the Bible, the book of Exodus, chapter 1. We covered the book of Genesis on our Bible study, and then we took the New Testament book of Acts. Now we're going to go back and do the Old Testament book of Exodus. There are 10 million lessons for us to learn as we study. It's amazing. A book written, probably 3,500 years ago is going to carry lessons that will affect us today and tomorrow. Only God could write a book like that. Well, if it's inspired, that settles the question. Now, these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Now, Nick, if you can swing the camera over here to, do I have this slide? Yeah, no, never mind. I've got it up. I got a PowerPoint for it. I thought I did. Every man and his household came with Jacob. If you recall, after the flood in the days of Noah, you got Abraham, who God called him to leave his country. And we covered this in the Genesis series. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. The chart ends with Joseph because, I got one here somewhere, I did have. Joseph is the last guy we really have any dates for. Oh, they're up there, yeah, people move my stuff around. Okay. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and then we don't have any dates for how old his kids were when they had their kids. So, plus, this doesn't go to Jesus Christ anyway. No, it goes through Judah. That's right. But that's all we've got dates for to make the chart, or else I had to go on further. We have secular history back to this point. So God called Abram, whose later name was changed to Abraham, to leave his country, get the wire untangled here, and go over to the special land called the Promised Land, the land of Israel. You really, if you memorize the names Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you got half of the Old Testament book of Genesis figured out. That's the sequence. Jacob had 12 children, and they became the 12 tribes, and later his name was changed to Israel. So the same guy, Jacob and Israel, same guy. So if you look at Abraham, who had Isaac, and Isaac had Jacob, and Jacob had a whole bunch of kids, 13 of them, 12 boys and 1 girl. The one boy, Joseph, is the one the other brother sold to be a slave down in Egypt. So the book of Genesis covers a long section of time, like nearly 400 years, from Abraham to Moses. And then it stops. Now Exodus starts up again with these 12 boys down in Egypt. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Benjamin. Benjamin's the only full brother of Joseph. And so when they come down to Egypt, his full brother Joseph, who's now the vice pharaoh, or whatever they call him, falls in, takes a special advantage of this and really gives his brother extra stuff that he hasn't seen in 20-some years. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already, and Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. We find out later there were nearly 2 million from these 12 boys. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. There's always somebody, you may have favor now with somebody, your neighbors or the politicians in your area, but a new king can come on the scene and that can all change overnight. You can lose that favor that you had. You can have, how many ever had a wonderful neighbor and they sold the house and somebody grouchy or awful moved in there next door? Yeah, okay. And he said unto his people, this is Pharaoh, said to his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. He said, look, there's more of them than there is of us. Let's do something about it. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with burdens, slave labor, put them to work. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. Now Pithom and Ramses are right here in Egypt. They are, you could tell they were at one time beautiful cities, but it's interesting today, when you go to Egypt, all they show you is how great it used to be 3,500 years ago. There's nothing great to show you today. They're showing you the ruins of what it used to be. A lot of people, they live their life in the past talking about the glory days. Oh, I remember how it used to be. Well, what are you doing today for the Lord? I mean, find something to do today. Many people are going to coast on their laurels. From the Marines, some of the guys, oh yeah, I got this medal, 27 years ago. Okay, well, what have you done in the last 27 years? Well, I've showed everybody my medal. Hey, how about do something today, get another medal for something. Pharaoh's servant said unto him, how long shall this man be a snare to us? In Exodus chapter 10, later on, we'll see, they said, the land of Egypt is destroyed. Because Pharaoh was hard-headed, he wouldn't let him go, God destroyed the whole land, and it's been pretty much nothing ever since. It used to be a glorious thing, and so Jacob's children and their descendants built those two cities. Anyway, but the more they afflicted them, back to Exodus chapter 1, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. It seemed like the more they gave them a hard time, the harder they made them work, the more kids they had. Everything just kept growing. Now, in Acts chapter 11, when they were scattered abroad upon the persecution that arose about Stephen. Sometimes persecution makes the church grow. It's crazy, but God spread them out. The persecution of Stephen made the church really multiply. You ought to read like Fox's Book of Martyrs. Did you ever find that in the library here? There's several. I got a whole stack of different books on the topic of martyrs. But fascinating book. If you haven't read Fox's Book of Martyrs, you need to read that one. It's written like in 1590 or something like that. He just kept track of all the martyrs that he could find history on for the first 1,500 years of the church. It's incredible, some of the things that happened. Anyway, back to Exodus 1. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar, and in brick, and in all the manner of service of the field, with all their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. They made them work hard. There are some people on the planet, like Pharaoh, who don't care how hard your life is as long as it makes them money. You guys work hard to build these beautiful cities so I can brag about what a great guy I am. That's what was happening in Egypt. Now, there are people today, 21st century, with the same attitude as Pharaoh. They think that everybody in the world should be their slave. There are some incredibly rich people.
Rocket Man.
Right. Rockefellers, Rothschilds, all kinds of these families, their goal in life is to have everybody be their slave. You work, they'll profit from it. This really started with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. God said, Adam, because of this sin, you got to work for a living now, son. And ever since then, people have tried to get somebody else to do the work. You work hard, I'll eat the food you produce. In Revelation 6, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat, which is a little more than a quart, for a penny. That's $60, a day's wages. And 3 measures of barley for a penny. They're working hard to make it where you have to work all day to maybe be able to afford to eat to stay alive. That's the goal. And it's coming like a freight train. You're going to see the economy completely collapse in the real near future. Just mark my words, okay? The love of money is root of all evil. There are some rich people who want to own everything. In Revelation chapter 6, we see where the sun and the moon go dark in verse 12. That's the rapture. After that, the kings of the earth and the great men and the rich men and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains and said to the mountains, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. First mention of the word wrath in the book of Revelation. For the great day of his wrath is come. There's a 7-year period known as the time of tribulation. And you can get this on the charts we have here in our book, What on Earth is About to Happen, or on the little chart. Then we have the sun and the moon go dark in the rapture after the tribulation, and then the time of wrath falls on the planet. So the rich men are going to find, during this time that's coming, they're going to control the finances of the world. You're going to have to get a mark to buy or sell, and they're going to get 2% of every transaction, which is what they do now with credit cards. You go charge $100, they get $2 and did absolutely zero. How much money is spent every day using credit cards? Worldwide? Billions. Trillions.
Yeah, trillions. Yeah.
How'd you like to get 2% of trillions? Yeah, that's what's happening. And it's going to get much worse. Much, much worse. A measure of wheat for a penny. You better learn to work, and you better learn to be frugal, and don't be in debt when this stuff hits the fan, because it's coming like a freight train. Get where you want to be, get in the center of God's will, and stay right there. God can provide for you in a desert. He can bring, quail can come out of heaven in the desert. He provided manna for it doesn't matter where you are, just so you're in the middle of God's will. You can be Elijah, and the ravens will bring you food. The greediest bird in the world brought him food. Okay? God can provide. You just say, God, you don't have to save up a bunch of stuff. Just stay in His will. Okay, so back to Exodus 1. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives. Now here's the two controversial things that are going to get people to hate me, and I'm getting all kinds of email and going to unsubscribe. Oh well. I'm so worried about it. Okay. Of the name of the one was Shiphrah, the name of the other was Puah. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife, in other words, you deliver the babies, to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools. Now, most people wouldn't understand what this means because of our modern 20th century medicine. If it be a son, ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. Most of the rest of the world is smarter than us when it comes to having babies. They have the baby sitting up on a stool. That way gravity helps push the baby out. When you're laying flat on your back, it's all push. When you're sitting on a birthing stool, gravity helps the baby come out of there. So it's a no-brainer. So they're sitting on the stools. He said, but the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men, children alive. Question. Is it ever okay to disobey orders?
Yes, if they violate God's orders.
Yes. If they violate God's orders, God has higher priority. Peter said in Acts chapter 5, we ought to obey God rather than men. Here the city council was telling them, don't talk about Jesus. They said, we're not going to obey that law. We're not going to follow that order. Many things in history have gone bad because people thought, oh, you have to follow orders. Hitler ordered all the Jews killed. And all of the soldiers all the way down the line said, we're just obeying orders, didn't they? Mm-hmm. And they tried to use that at the Nuremberg trial. And they killed like 6 million Jews, plus 4 million other people. But the soldiers said, we're just obeying orders. They should have disobeyed the orders. You say, yeah, they'd be court-martialed and maybe kill themselves. Okay. Then you take whatever. You can't help what your leaders are going to do, but you don't have to follow the order. In the military, you take an oath, to defend against terrorists, or what's the word, defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. What if the enemy is domestic? What if it's, in-house? And sometimes they are. Hitler's guards and soldiers should not have obeyed that order. All the way down the line, Hitler gets the blame for it, but his generals, his colonels, majors, captains, lieutenants, sergeants, corporals, privates, the camp commandants, the neighbors who let it happen around their neighborhood, all of them are going to get some of the blame when it comes to God's judgment day. Now, when it came to the Nuremberg trials, a lot of the neighbors said, we didn't know that was going on. Have you read that pamphlet about the lady that lived near the train tracks, and they sing a little louder? Google that. You got a phone there, brother? No. There's a gospel tract called Sing a Little Louder, where this family in Germany they knew the trainload of Jews was going by at a certain time, because the Germans are real prompt, right on time with everything. And so the Jews would be in there screaming, help us, help us, help us. And so that's right during church service, they would go by. So the church learned a schedule of when this train is coming by, and they would sing a little louder to drown out the sounds. Can you find it, Anna? It's just a little short story, a page or two long, And the people were lamenting afterwards, they should have done something. What could they have done? Is it a movie?
Yeah.
Sing a little louder?
IMDb. That will give you all the details.
It doesn't matter. Okay, point is, yes, if they had gone out and stood in the middle of the train track, or derailed the train, or pulled up the rails, or, built a bonfire in the middle of the track, the Germans would have got mad. Yeah. Well, the Germans might have killed them. Yeah. They should have done something to stop it. They knew what was going on, and they didn't. And for the rest of their life, they felt bad about it. They allowed that to happen in their backyard. Now, in October 1st, 1946, after World War II, the International Military Tribunal, IMT, issued verdicts. They held the trial of Hitler's people. 12 of them were ordered to be executed for the crimes they committed. Their excuse, every one of them said, we were just following orders. It didn't hold up at the Nuremberg trial. They said, sometimes you have to disobey an order. Oh, not in the German army you don't. Well, not in any army you don't. That's standard, worldwide. But there are times when you have to disobey. They sentenced 3 defendants to life in prison and 4 to prison terms ranging from 10 to 20 years. Göring ends his life by poison. 10 others were hanged in Nuremberg. It's interesting, there were 10. That's how many of Haman's sons were hanged in the book of Esther. So they doomed men on the gallows, pray for Germany. They still didn't get it. They were still intent. Now, we have doctors who say, we're just obeying the orders, we're just obeying the law. When someone comes in for an abortion, the law says we can do it, I just have to do it. The nurse says, hey, I'm just doing what they tell me to do. I work for the doctor. If I don't do this abortion, well then, I'll get fired. Well, your logic's going to hold up just like Hitler's men's logic held up at God's judgment day. There's a judgment day coming much higher than the Nuremberg trial. And you nurses, the receptionist who's taking the people in saying, go this way down this hallway for the abortion, or I'll schedule you for 10 o'clock tomorrow, you're just as accountable. And the landlords that rent the building to the people that do the abortions, you're going to be accountable to God one day. It's murder. Abortion is murder, plain and simple. There's no other way to say it. And just to say I just obeyed orders or it's legal, that doesn't make it right. Here's a doctor was put on trial for murder for an abortion because he didn't do it under the law of the state. It doesn't matter if the law of the state allows it or doesn't allow it. God's law doesn't allow it. In my seminar I say, when a woman goes in for an abortion, why is it always the baby that has to be killed? I mean, I taught biology and anatomy. I'm pretty familiar with this. I think there are 3 people involved here. Mother, father, and baby. Are there any exceptions to that? Okay, there's going to be a mother and a father and a baby. Why is it always the baby gets killed? Why don't we abort the mother once in a while? Or abort the father? Tell you what, pass a law in your state. If a woman wants to have an abortion, you're going to at least have a lottery. 3 marbles in the bag to pick out which one dies. It would stop abortions like that. The only one that can't talk and speak up, hey, is the baby. I tell you what, let's make it 4 marbles in there. Put one in there for doctor. Let's put a bunch in there for congressmen and senators that allow this insanity in our country. Put one for everyone in there that voted for abortion. Put a marble in there for them. And pick one out, and whoever's marble gets picked dies. If it's the baby, okay. Come on. How about teachers that teach evolution? Well, we have to. That's our curriculum. We're just obeying orders. I'm just doing what I was told to do. I was told I have to teach this curriculum, so I'm teaching the kids evolution because I have to or I'll lose my job. This is no different than the stupid logic that Hitler's generals did. This is the law. I have to do it. I have to kill these Jews. You don't have to teach kids evolution in school. You say, well, I'm going to lose my job. Well, then lose your job. Get an honest job, picking peaches or digging ditches, but don't lie to kids and teach them they came from an ape-like ancestor. I know a couple teachers that are Christians that teach science in public schools. And they will say, hey kids, here's what the curriculum says. And they study the curriculum exactly like it says. However, this is not true for the following 30 reasons. Now for the SAT test, you're probably going to have to answer the question this way. But you can put a note there that says, the textbook says, like, how old is the earth? The textbook says 4.6 billion. However, this is not correct. The teacher knows you studied the work, you learned it, you digested it, you spit it back out. I don't believe it. And if they give you a lower grade for that, you let me know. I got some folks on the wings would love to take that court case, and you can own that school when you're done. That's discrimination. But the idea that a teacher who doesn't believe in evolution is teaching it to their students because they're afraid of losing their paycheck, that is just evil. Capital E, evil. You realize that you're destroying the faith of kids that come through your class just so you can get a paycheck. That's no different than Hitler's sergeants pulling the trigger on the machine gun, shooting those Jews, just so he can keep his paycheck coming in. Teachers, school board members, you are just as responsible. You're the ones that are allowing this in your schools. If you're a school board member and they're teaching evolution in your schools, don't hide behind this, I'm just following the state law. That's not going to hold up judgment day at God's trial. If you're on the textbook selection committee, you're going to be accountable to God. If you're a state legislator, you're allowing this to happen in your state. You're allowing kids to be lied to and taught evolution. They say, we're just obeying orders. This book says, comparative anatomy provides further evidence of evolution. The commonalities suggest these other vertebrate animals are all related. They probably evolved from a common ancestor. That's insanity. If there are similarities between you and other creatures, maybe that's proof we got a common designer. But my video Lies in the Textbooks is full of this stuff, the lies that they teach to promote this. And if you're teaching it, or you're paying for it, or you're the guy who's voting in those textbooks, you're going to be accountable like Hitler's guards were accountable at Nuremberg, only God's judgment is going to have every detail written down. Somebody is buying those books for your kids to learn these lies. Let me take another controversial topic while I'm on it. Start the year off right. Vaccinations. Well, we're just obeying orders. We're supposed to give the kids these vaccines or I'll lose my job. Well, then lose your job. Go to childhoodshots.com and see what kind of damage vaccines do to kids. If you're a doctor or a nurse or a receptionist, if you're any way involved in destroying these kids, and what it's doing with the incredible rise in autism and all sorts of other problems with these stupid vaccines. Well, we're just obeying orders. The state law says we have to vaccinate the kid. What if everybody refused? Now, the public schools will say you can't come to school if you're not vaccinated. Okay, what if everybody refused to go? They'd shut the doors, wouldn't they? The congressman would panic. If Hitler's guards had all said, we are not doing this. Hitler didn't pull the trigger one time, to my knowledge, did he? He didn't actually shoot anybody, but he gets the blame for it. Somebody carried out his orders. Just because your state says you have to get vaccinated to go to school doesn't mean you doctors have to follow that order. Rebel, start a revolution, stop. Don't do it. Back to Exodus. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, why have ye done this thing and saved the men, children alive? These women did not follow the orders of the king. Pharaoh said, kill all the baby boys. They didn't do it. Is it okay to disobey an order? Yes, it is. But it risked their life. Yeah, it sure did. They might have been killed for it. But they would have done the right thing.
Like Daniel in the lion's den.
Daniel in the lion's den. I'm not going to bow. Like that Johnny Cash song. They wouldn't bend, they wouldn't bow, they wouldn't burn. The three children of Israel said, king, you pass any laws you want. We're not bowing to your statue. I'm going to throw you in the fire. Okay. Then throw me in the fire. But I'm not bowing. And we need some people with some guts to stand up to these stupid things that are happening in our country. That's why it's falling apart. Because nobody's standing up. Say, look, I'm not going to teach that stuff. I'm not going to give that kid this shot. You say, well, they'll just hire another nurse that'll do it. Yeah, okay, well then get a different job, digging ditches, picking peaches, do something honest. He said, why have you done this? Save the men, children alive. And the midwife, here's the next controversial topic. Okay. And the midwife said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. Now think just for a minute. These midwives are lying to Pharaoh, aren't they? Question, is it ever okay to lie? Think carefully now. When the children of Israel came across the Jordan River, they came to Jericho. Joshua, the son of Nun, sent out of Shittim 2 men to spy secretly, go view the land, go view Jericho. And they went and came into an harlot's house named Rahab and lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, behold, there came men hither tonight of the children of Israel to search out the country. And the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, bring forth the men that are come to thee, which are entered into thine house, for they be come to search out all the country. So the king says, Rahab, bring those men out here. And the woman took the 2 men and hid them, and said thus, there came men unto me, but I wist not whence they were. And it came to pass about the time of shutting of the gate, when it was dark, the men went out. Whither the men went, I know what not. Pursue after them quickly, and ye shall overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof of the house, and hid them with the stalks of flax, which she laid on the order on the roof. She hid the guys under the, whatever this flax is, you know, some kind of plant. And she told them, oh, they just left. Go get them. She lied to them, didn't she? But she lied in order to save those guys' lives. Well, what happened to Rahab for that? Rahab, is it ever okay to lie? Yes, under certain circumstances, it is. I mean, in wartime, don't we turn the signs and try to confuse the enemy and lie to them to get them to go some other direction? Yeah. See, in wartime, the rules change on some things. Solomon begat Boaz of Rahab. This is Rahab. And Boaz begat Obed of Ruth. And Obed begat Jesse. And Jesse begat David the king. And David the king begat Solomon of her that had been the wife of Uriah. There are 4 women in the genealogy in Matthew chapter 1. All 4 of them have some real shady problems in their past, okay? Rahab was a harlot, a prostitute. But she lied to her leaders and saved 2 men of God. And she ended up in the genealogy leading to Jesus Christ. Yes, she did the right thing. Corrie ten Boom, her Dutch family in Holland, was there when the Germans took over, the Nazis. They hid nearly 800 Jews from the Nazis, saved their lives. Read The Hiding Place. We got The Hiding Place in here. It's an excellent book. Okay? They had a special place in their house. They would take out the bottom shelf, and the people would crawl in. They had a false wall built. When the Nazis came, they would all go hide in there and hold real still and put the clothes in front of it. They finally were discovered. And Corrie and her sister went to prison, Nazi concentration camp. The sister died. Corrie survived and ended up traveling and preaching all over for years afterwards. She just died in 1983 at, 90 years old. Was she right to lie to the Nazis and hide people in her house? Yes. Do you have any Jews here? Oh, no, sir, no Jews here. She did the right thing, okay? The Lord said to Samuel, how long wilt thou mourn for Saul? This is after Saul went bad and God rejected him. God said, fill thine horn with oil and go. I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite. For I have provided me a king among his sons, which is King David. And Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hear it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, now watch this carefully, take an heifer with thee, that's a cow, and say, I am come to sacrifice to the Lord. Now hold it. God said, Samuel, take your horn of oil and go anoint David king. Samuel said, Saul's going to kill me. God said, tell him you're going there to sacrifice. Take a cow with you. This is a diversion. Is God telling Samuel to lie? He sure is. Isn't he? We're coming up on a time of tribulation. We're going to have to get some principles down in our head. There's a war going on. During war times, things change. The Bible's pretty clear. Thou shalt not kill. Right? 10 Commandments, Exodus 20. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Don't lie. But there are exceptions to this. God said in Exodus 22, 2 chapters later, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. What's that mean? You kill them. Hold it. Didn't he just say don't kill? Yeah. But it's okay to kill a witch. Whoso lieth with a beast shall be put to death. Bestiality. Kill him. That's what God said. He that sacrificeth to any god, save unto the Lord, shall be utterly destroyed. So you have to read the scripture in context. Is it okay to lie? Is it okay to, can you ever break these commandments? Yeah, if it's wartime. And it's wartime coming up. Anyway, therefore, God dealt well with the midwives. Remember, they disobeyed their boss. They lied to him, told him the Hebrew women have the baby before we get there. They lied to him. And God blessed them. They call this the Rahab principle because of what Rahab did. Sometimes it's okay to deceive your enemy. Is it okay to lie to save the enemy? Yes, it is. Came to pass because the midwives feared God that he made them houses. I've never understood what that means. I can see several options. God built him a house, or God had Pharaoh build him a house, or I don't know, somebody else built a house for him. But anyway, they got blessed for doing the right thing, saving the babies alive. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. So he told his people, hey, we're still having baby boys born to these people. Throw them in the river when you find one. So in the next chapter, A mother had a baby born to her, a baby boy, and she went and hid him in the river. Does anybody know what his name is? Moses. Did that mother disobey the law again? Yeah, she sure did.
Well, why don't some doctors tell that they give the shots even if they don't?
The doctors ought to be protected. I met a doctor once that told his patients, he said, I'll give you this vaccine, but if you, I think, cut a potato in half and put it on there, it'll suck it back out or something. Or just check. If I was a doctor, I would tell him, I gave the shot and not do it.
Yep.
If you got to keep your job. There's a war going on, folks. I mean, it's a full-fledged knockdown, drag-em-out war, and it's time somebody stands up and does what's right.
SIDS is a result of some of those vaccines.
It's unreal. Go to childhoodshots.com and see Mary's stuff. It's incredible. We are destroying the next generation. If I was in the Air Force and they told me, you got to fly this plane and spray these chemtrails, you shouldn't do it. Yeah, but I'm just obeying orders. Well, you're like a Nazi then. Do you think what you're doing? You're supposed to be defending our country against enemies, foreign and domestic. We have some domestic enemies in our government that are trying to do some things that are unscriptural, unlawful, unreasonable. Yeah, it's time somebody stands up and says, no, I'm not doing it. So, I told you it'd be controversial tonight, didn't I? Thank you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you. Bye.